What's up everyone and welcome to another Melee 3.0 edition of Let's Max Warframe. Today we're going to be taking a look at another weapon with a special mechanic to it and how we can put that to work for us, and that is the Fists of Healing, the Hirudo. The Hirudo is a pretty cheap weapon to build. The blueprint comes from the market, and the biggest cost being the fact that you need to use the Kagaki in the build alongside 3 Knight Aim. But at Mastery Rank 7 they're a reasonably early way to get a pretty damn decent weapon. With it built, you're getting a weapon with mostly puncture damage, which is far from ideal in most situations. However, crazy crit stats, 30% crit chance, 3 times crit damage multiplier. Naturally, we're going to be pushing that as the main part of our build. The biggest downside of it though is its very poor status chance, which is only 11%. So with max stacked Weeping Wounds, that is only 60 or 70% status chance. That's far from terrible, but not quite the 100% status we've been showcasing in the last few videos. But it is definitely still worth modding for. However, part of the reason they're so good comes down to his special mechanic, which is a buff called Invigorated. What Invigorated does, it will buff your base health by 5% for 15 seconds, and can stack up to 5 times each time you crit. Which, when this is stacked, is literally every single hit. Because this is base health though, on most frames you're going to barely notice it. However, use it on a frame like in Naros or Grendel, it's going to be extremely noticeable. However, the main part we actually care about on this weapon, every time you crit, you will heal yourself for 5% of the damage done. And since you often hit in the tens of thousands, you're going to be able to get an amazing amount of healing on literally every single hit, which can sustain even really squishy frames until pretty high level. While some weapons like the Nikana, the Nikana I showed the other day, that needs the Daikyu Amalgam mod taking up your primary weapon slot, or the Redeemer needs Healing Return, which takes an important mod slot. This is built into the base of the Hirudo, and can be a fantastic way to get some healing on the fly. Stance-wise, there's actually 2 on offer here. However, the one we're going to be going with is Brutal's Hide. It's great mobility, and looks flashy as hell, although I'm sad it doesn't yeet enemies across the plains anymore. Going skeet shooting was some of the dumbest fun I've had. The combo I focused on with this stance though is Inferno, which you can do if you hold W and spam melee, or just stand still spamming it. This means no accidental combos that you don't want. It also seems to have a couple of guaranteed impact procs, which is great for condition overload, and a wide sweep, which, if you combine that with range mods, clears groups surprisingly quickly. It's a properly decent little stance. So let's get down into the build, and well, it's pretty much the same build you're going to see on most of the combo style melee weapons these days. Condition Overload as our base damage was one that took a bit of decision. I switched between both this and Prime Pressure Point multiple times during testing, but I did feel that CO as our base damage mod came out ahead. I felt that honestly there was enough forced impact procs in the stance, and although the status chance isn't great, when it was fully stacked it was proccing enough to warrant the switch to Condition Overload. Although, this is one of those where you would be totally justified in changing out to Prime Pressure Point if you wanted. Then we go into our crit setup. Blood Rush for crit chance and Organ Shatter for crit damage. Berserker for attack speed. No real surprises here. Neither is there a surprise with maxing out the corrosive damage, Prime Fever Strike and Shocking Touch, and Weeping Wounds to bring that status chance up to proc a lot more often. Now, the reason we're not using any dual stats here is because Weeping Wounds, much like Blood Rush, works only on base status, not modded status. So actually putting any of the dual stats on here is basically kind of irrelevant. So we're not going to lose any of our elemental damage by dropping to the 60% dual stats, and then use Weeping Wounds to bring our status chance up to about, 60-70%. Final mod might look like an odd one. Primed Reach. In Melee 2.0 you would never have dreamt of putting a range mod on. Well, the change from it being percentage based to a fixed increase means that a weapon with one of the shortest ranges in the game hits out further than a polearm without the range mod. The sort of differentiation between ranged melees and short range is a lot more blurred than it used to be. because obviously on a short range you could still just whack the prime reach on there and get really good range. However, this means that with the stance Brutal Tide, we're going to be able to wade into a group of enemies and hit them all and just shred the whole group. It's way more effective than you actually would expect, and that's why it's got our final mod slot on here. Once again, our combo is being taken care of by Naramon's Power Spike, which makes it ridiculously easy to keep your combo up these days. And with the insane operator movement you can get with Naramon, it makes it a dream for melee users. So with all that said and done, the Hirudo. It's actually a pretty damn good weapon that can bring an amazing amount of healing and a sustained tank to any frame you use them on. Combine them with a rage tank for almost literally unlimited energy. They're more than strong enough to work well in arbitrations or in level 5 lich missions, which all the footage in this video is from. And even better is the fact that these can perform even better than I'm actually showing. Put these on a frame with gladiator mods, or even put the Helios Prime on with your Deconstructor Prime to add the gladiator mod set bonus to the weapon. And watch as these hit even harder than they do in the footage. The wonderful thing about these, though, is something I mentioned earlier, a powerful heal on a good melee that isn't tying you into a specific primary weapon or using a very important mod slot, or even a frame or operator arcane. Running a double Grace? Well, change this out to something else like a double Guardian, and rock the Hirudo for your healing, just for this crazy, insane, like, sustained tank. Weapons like this really allow you to build around them and just run some really amazing setups without sacrificing yourself in any real way. I wasn't too much of a fan of the Hirudo in Melee 2.0, mainly because the short range really felt incredibly painful, but with the change to range mods they feel competitive again. They've never been, well, I say they've never been terrible, however, let's be real. How could these things compete? You know, they had like a 1.5 meter range. How could that compete with a polearm that could hit 15 meters with a prime reach? Not to mention the status kinda was unusably bad before. However, the buff to Weeping Wounds has been insane and brought it up to a point where they actually work really well. I reckon they're easily good enough to consider building and making frame builds around. Let me know if you've given them a go since Melee 3.0 and what you think of them. I'm starting to get to the stage though that I might do a bit of a general Melee build video soon, showcasing sort of the basic builds. Because naturally, you know, I'm not doing a video on every Melee weapon, and I'm sure you've started noticing the builds have kind of, you know, ended up being very samey already as we've kind of settled on the meta now. So rather than 10 videos with the same build, I'd rather do a generalized video talking about the main builds for Melee 3.0 and when to use them. However, I look forward to checking out your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, sub and hit the bell for more Warframe content, and I shall catch you in the next video.